With a pencil drawing I made 8 years ago, a head full of ideas, and free track planning software, I'm going to show you how I took this basic sketch and created this highly detailed scale model track plan. Coming up next. Welcome back to the Philadelphia Beltline series, or as I like to call it, the PBL Railroad. In my previous video, I was telling you why I was changing my railroad from the Mine Mountain Seaside Railroad to the PBL. In this video, I'm going to show you how I came up with the track plan, the free software that I used to get it, the inspirations that drove me, the Givens Druthers that I have set, and then we'll go through the different iterations that I came up with to come up with the initial track plan. Once I was happy with that, I sent it out to different friends and showed it around train shows and got some feedback from that. Once the suggestions from my friends were changed in the track plan and updated, I had a finalized track plan that I had something to work with. And once I had my finalized track plan, I started printing it out in sections. I came up with the idea to build it in phases to match those different sections. That way I can get trains running and we can get feedback from the operations of the railroad and make any kind of tweaks and changes before we get too far along. And towards the end of the video, I have a special surprise that will expand the operations of the PBL way beyond the walls of my basement. Hang around for that. So let's take a quick look at the photographs that inspired the PBL Railroad. As I mentioned in my previous video, Ralph Heiss introduced me to the Canal Street Railroad, and I took a deep dive on the internet, finding bustling streets full of traffic, dodging trains. Car float operations especially caught my eye. I always enjoyed those. The large warehouses, cold storage buildings, manufacturers all over the place in yards. The overhead aerial views were especially cool, getting an idea of the scope and size of these buildings that took up the area. Operating on other people's layouts, especially with pocket yards and car float operations. Sandboard maps are always helpful. The satellite views of the regions. The Conrail ZTS maps, and taking a personal visit there, grabbing photographs, really got me into the idea of modeling this area. Being surrounded by the buildings there and walking along the tracks that trains used to rumble down really galvanized my idea of building this railroad. You can see the tracks ducking into the buildings. And with my father growing up in this area as a child, and my grandfather being a Pennsylvania Railroad man working the trains in this very region, I just knew I had to build this railroad. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the computer-aided design program that I like to use. There are many out there available. I'm not going to list all of them. If you want to, go down in the comments below, put your favorite computer-aided program for designing track plans down in the comments below, and then maybe we can start sharing some ideas of other ideas. But the one that I mainly use, or always use, is ExtractCAD. It's available. It's a free program, 100% free, open source, and you can design pretty much anything in this program. I've been using it for almost 20 years. I think the program has been around since 2005, and I've been using it since 2006. So about 19 and a half years. And I've seen it change and grow and get better every time. The track available, they have pretty much any scale you want, from Z all the way up to G scale. No, they don't have 7 1/4 live steam or anything, but you might be able to adapt it. And they have a way of doing custom turnouts and tracks where you can design your own. So the ability is there if you want to go to that extent. What you see on the screen here is just an example. The program comes with a few dozen different examples of layouts that people have submitted and the programmers have included. This one's called Cascade Railroad. They have smaller railroads that have shelf layouts, so 4x8s, many 4x8s I saw there. This one's a larger layout, looks like it's about 12.5 by 22, so it sounds about the size of a one-car garage. You have the ability to turn off and on a lot of the layers up on top here. You can see, there you go, you can design your own benchwork. They have built in like 2x4s, 1x3s, 1x2s, all different ways of, L girder or open benchwork, all different types. You can also see trees. They have a lot of different track available from pretty much all the manufacturers, the US manufacturers like Atlas and Micro Engineering. They have a lot of the European stuff, Marklin, Pico, and all those, and Fast Tracks out of Canada. A lot of different manufacturers are available, and again, up top, you can actually design a lot of your own turnouts too. They also have a large library of structures available from different manufacturers, and I'm trying to gradually build R kits, my mount models into the system, and I'm going to submit those in so that you can actually download those right in the program. So they also have a large library of scenery elements like structures and trees. You can build polygons for rivers and bridges. They do have Micro Engineering bridges in here. They have turntables. You can do helixes, parallel tracks, radiuses. You can modify the tracks once they're down. You can cut them, you can expand them, you can hide them, you can turn them into tunnels. And then once you do have your track plan all done, you can print this out in different scales. Let's say 1 inch equals a foot, 3 inches equals a foot. You can do 1-to-1 where you print it out on a whole bunch of sheets or send it out to a printer in town, or maybe like a Staples or something like that. You have large plot printers printed out. That comes in handy. It's very versatile. I just wanted to introduce everybody to ExtractCAD. It's a very user-friendly program. A little learning curve, but that's with any programs actually. But like I said, I've been using this for almost 20 years, and I've done all my layouts, all different scales, N scale, G scale, HO scale, Marklin tracks, all different types. Had no problem with it. It's come in very handy. There's also the function of looking at elevations, where you can set the elevations of all your tracks, see the profile of how that is. One drawback, and I don't see it as a major one, is that there is no 3D view of your layouts. But I've tried other programs out for free and paid, and that have the 3D layouts, and I don't get much benefit out of that. As long as I have the elevation available, that's good for me. Yes, from my understanding, you can export this into JMRI, be used in their layout control systems, using signals and switch controls. All that stuff is all available. So I'm not going to go too in depth into this. I mean, there's dozens and dozens of videos available on YouTube, open source stuff, there's blogs, there's group IO stuff, there's Facebook pages. So you can figure all that out. If you have any questions, there's also demos, videos that they do, and the help screen, of course, also. ExtractCAD is available at sourceforge.net. So we're on to Givens and Druthers. I'm pretty sure that was coined by John Allen. If I'm wrong, comment down below. So to put it in quick terms, the Givens are the unchangeables, and the Druthers are your wish lists. Well, let's quickly hop back into ExtractCAD program here so I can go over my Givens, because that's pretty much based on the room dimensions and locations of things. So the main room here, this is about 14 foot by 15 foot, and the little annex in the back, that is 3 foot wide and 20 foot long. There are locations, put some measurements up here. You see some extra measurements. That's some of my bench work that you'll see later on. But for the most part, you can see the main room dimensions here. You can pause it and take a look at that. The next given is going to be these black squares here. These are holes in the wall from my previous layout. They are set. These gray lines are cinder block walls, so those holes are not moving. So they're a given. They cannot move. The next thing is going to be these red squares are
locations of outlets in the room. And this kind of helps me decide where I'm going to have my command station for my DCC system. That's the main Givens for this room here. The holes in the wall also set the height of the layout. That's going to be approximately, rail height would, top of the rails would be about 46 inches off the ground. I wish it would be a little higher, but because the old layout was 2 levels, I had to drop the main level down to that 46 inch level, and then the second level was higher. I didn't want that to be too high. So again, these holes are set, and that sets the height of the layout. It is what it is. It's a given. I have to live with that. I have existing bench work there from the old layout. I'll put a quick shot of the old layout on the screen, and then I wanted to try and save as much of that bench work as possible. So that's kind of a given. The holes in the wall, the height of the layout, the existing bench work, the locations of the outlets, and then, might not seem it, but limited time for building is a given for me. Since there's family, there's my daytime job, and I have my models to run, that takes up a lot of time. So the time that I do have to work on the layout, I started around robin, and it's very limited. So I decided that given has made me choose to build the layout in phases. So I'm actually kind of excited it'll get trains up and running and operating sooner, instead of trying to build all the bench work and all the track and everything. So that's actually a plus, a positive from that given.
Okay, moving on to my druthers. Many of them were mentioned in the inspiration section of this video. Needless to say, it's going to be HO scale. I want to set the era in the 1960s, no exact date right now. I'm going to have urban running, street running, a lot of car float action, large warehouses and industries. Important, I want to keep it about 5 to 7 cars per train, like locals, kind of moving up and down the roads, nothing big, no giant main lines. Another important one would be relatively flat track. For the most part, I want this to be dead flat. So as I'm operating, I don't want cars rolling all over the place. There are only a couple of little spots that will have a slight incline, nothing major. For the majority of the operations, I would like it to be point to point, but I still want to have the option of a continuous runaround, because sometimes I just like to watch trains move around while I'm working. And one of the most important druthers is the ability to create new building kits for my mount models to be installed and used on the new layout. Okay, finally we get to the track plan. Just a quick overview of the original layout of my Mountain Seaside Railroad here. As you can see, there was lots of deep areas. This was actually bumped out, as I mentioned earlier. Staging tracks, 4 staging tracks back here, where the holes through the walls. Okay, let's move on. 8 years ago, 2017, I sat down for lunch and I scribbled this out because I started thinking about a urban railroad way back then. So this is me trying to figure out how many industries and areas and stuff that I could actually model. Here, I modified the bench work from the original layout. This is about 24 inches deep in most areas. This is just the initial plan, just seeing how I could lay out the girders and stuff. I was keeping the original staging tracks in the back. This is just getting a feel for space, and now finally getting into some track. I started laying some track down. This is just me trying some car float. For size, I used the dimensions of the Walthers car float to get an idea. There are float docks and car floats. I'll probably end up making my own to fit the situation. So here's the first area that I was drawing. It was this dock and pier with a transfer crane over here. Passing sign would be in this area. Originally I was thinking that this would be a little bit higher, dropping down into this area. This is a pocket yard. I was basing this off of basically the Erie 28th Street in New York. This is pretty much the way it was. After running it and operating it at Dave Ramos's house a few times, I enjoyed this.
But I knew this isn't exactly what I wanted on my layout because there's a few people who have done the 28th Street yard already. This was just me trying to see if a car float will work in different areas, just throwing simple runarounds and stuff for size, trying to figure out what cars were going to fit where. Now it's getting a little bit more serious, more in depth. Again, the 28th Street yard is still in play. I started throwing in some local yard areas, some industry spurs going off into some background flats and warehouses and stuff. Started to see and feel where scenery might go, where manufactured buildings and roads are at the top of the layout here. I cut the 4-stage tracks to 2. They're basically going to stay exactly the same, and I'm just going to cut in some crossovers. If we can zoom in, there we go. Cut in some crossovers. And I was thinking of having a big industry on this little side area here. So this is the initial plan here. I sent this out to friends to have them look it over. I got some feedback. You can see all the freight cars that I added in just to see the capacity of some of these yards. 1 box car, maybe 2 box cars going to some of these manufacturers and warehouses and stuff. Wanted to see how many cars I could fit into the Erie yard here, which is not going to be the Erie yard eventually. The local yard here, maybe a gasworks possibly in the area. Start just getting a feel for how things are going to fit. So here, this is the Erie yard. I cut that out and moved it off to the side, and I replaced it after looking at the Sanborn maps near Delaware Avenue on the Philadelphia Beltline. I found the Baltimore and Ohio B&O Pier 40, which was a car float served pocket yard. Had some transfer tracks and stuff, a transfer warehouse similar to the Erie, where this is 3 cars or 3 tracks. The line, I think it could handle 3 to 4 box cars here. A transfer crane, sort of a all-purpose track there. Again, throwing in some more cars, starting to add just some scenery, see how things are going to fit. A few more larger warehouse buildings and stuff. Starting to finalize some of where the tracks are going to go. Again, taking into account some suggestions. I got rid of that industry back here. Dave Abelese offered the idea of you can never have too much staging tracks, so I converted this to 5-stage tracks here. That would be basically representing North Philly. There's a yard up there, and I can pull that into the main layout and work it and bring it down into the areas down here. Eventually the cars can work their way around to the other piers here and here. Tom Schmieder was looking at the layout, and he suggested pulling this track in. So it got a little bit tight here on the radius, but it'll work out. Originally this track went underneath of this other track on the far right. And he also, being a police officer, thought of safety, a retired police officer. So originally I was thinking of connecting Canal Street modules here through the doorway. So basically I would make a little adapter module to connect to the main layout room here and try to figure out how I can get the Canal Street. That was just an option. Right here you can see the drop-in runaround. Again, this would be basically a point here. This is the end of the point. Work this whole street running area here with all the industries. Run back here, all these industries up top, come around. This would be a point here with this pier and car floats taking cars on and off the layout, and then it would work its way to this car float and the pocket yard, technically not a pocket yard, but it would operate like one to get cars on and off the railroad. So that's kind of like a movable staging. The car float's movable staging. I would have staging back here of 5 cars. So I'm starting to finalize more of the track. I got a better view of the B&O pier, and I reconfigured some of the trackage, and I made this tail track kind of bump out. This would fold down. There's still plenty of room to walk through to the back room. It's not going to be a duck under. You can see some of the changes that happened here.
some of the rework of a little bit of the crossovers and stuff on the street running in this area. A little bit of the rework in the tracks over here in the B&O yard, like I said. And started finalizing some of the industries along the back room, street running back there. Again, a little bit more scenery, just to get a feel. It's not going to be so green, but I need to fill in something just so you can see where non-track areas would be. This is probably going to be a gas refinery area. Most likely that could switch that industry and just kind of leave it open. These are all going to be background flats and big warehouses up all along the whole wall. And the suggestion that Tom Schmieder made of getting the connection to the Canal Street modules out of the doorway actually became a little bit more prototypical, because down here at the bottom, this is kind of how the tracks coming off of Delaware Avenue would connect to Canal Street. Very similar configuration here. So that actually worked out better, and I'm going to punch a hole through the wall right here, and then the adapter module will end up going in this area here. Plenty of spaces to add new kits for my mount models. So then I wanted to start printing this out in a 1:1 scale. Like I said, ExtractCAD has the capability of doing that. And so this is the first area that I ended up printing on a whole bunch of sheets of legal paper and taped them all together. I'll try and get a quick video of that up on the screen here to show you. But you can see how the street running works. The trains would come in from the back here. This is back in that little annex where the original staging tracks would be. They would come in, and I would operate this area here. So this would be phase 1. Here's phase 2. Again, this was originally 4 tracks of staging. I'll take out the back 2 tracks, and that'll become all the background warehouses and stuff where all the tracks duck into. Phase 3 is here. We'll come back from the back and come to the first pier, and I try and get this trackage eventually working. Again, this is not 100% the way it'll be. This is just a feel. Got my runaround track here. Cars in the pocket track here for the switcher engines. Some warehouses. This may be a supply house or scrapyard or something in this area. This area is up for grabs. And then phase 4 would be the B&O Pier 40 here. And I would build that out. This is going to be a neat little area where one person can stay pretty busy for a while. And then I said, hey, why don't I expand the plan? Let me just see how this Canal Street is going to work. And surprise, surprise, what you see here is basically the rest of my basement. This is where my whole workshop is for my mount models. Lasers and 3D printers and storage and packaging and all the products and everything are all kept in here. But Canal Street is a module railroad. I could actually have that span across some of my workbenches here and connect to the main layout. So I just threw this picture in here just to see how it would look. And I said, hey, I could probably do pretty well. So I made it a little bit more permanent. I started adding some actual ExtractCAD track to see how it would fall and actually work with real sections of track and switches and turnouts and everything. Again, Sanborn maps aren't exact. They were more for fire insurance. They weren't like trying to be true to scale for the tracks. So I had to tweak some of the tracks going into some of these buildings, but they're actually a little bit more accurate to the real world the way I have these here now. This track here is kind of odd. I see no evidence of this actually existing. When I went to the actual roads and stuff, I don't see any old turnout. I don't see any repairs. All the Belgian block and stuff are all the same. It's kind of strange that that's actually there. I'm wondering if that even existed. I'm going to leave that out. So here's some of the scenery back in. I started throwing in some shapes onto Canal Street. Some buildings and stuff. Here, these are actual sizes of the warehouses that are still there. They're condos now, actually, this whole area. And this whole area here, all these buildings are completely torn down and they're becoming condos and apartments. And you can see a little pumpkin head here. In some of my reference photos, I found one of the big gas tanks that are there. Somebody must have climbed up there in the late 60s, I think, and painted a giant pumpkin head on there. So I definitely want to model that. So I want to include that in there. Again, this isn't exact. I'm going to set it to the late 60s. I have the tracks that are pretty much the way they were then. Some of them are a combination, like this area actually is Delaware Avenue now, but I wanted to have another industry. This industry actually existed way back before Delaware Avenue got widened and moved over. So this is kind of a 1913 building that I included, but all the rest of this stuff along Canal Street is pretty accurate to the way it was running all the way through into the 80s almost, I think. Here is just the track with all the scenery and buildings away. You can get an idea of what that looks like. So this could be Canal Street would be a point to a point on Delaware Avenue run here, a point staging here, all street running here to the, I guess technically fourth point, and then the B&O Pier 40 would be the fifth point. I'm pretty excited. There's a lot of operational possibilities here. I'm really looking forward to checking this out. There's the whole layout. You can see I drew in kind of where the modules are. These thin black lines are the actual modules that are, some of them are already built, and some have to be built. Really looking forward to seeing how this thing operates. But the good thing is, let me go back to the phase one. Here we are. Phase one is what I'm going to start with. I'm going to keep the 4-track staging in the back so that that's my staging. I'll get this all laid out, all the tracks, and get this working and see how it operates with a few guys coming over and seeing how this thing goes. Once I'm happy and satisfied with phase one, I will go to phase two here, take out the tracks and build the staging tracks over here on the far left, and then I can start adding all the industries into phase two. So that's how we're going to start out and see how this thing goes. But really look forward to getting the PBL railroad moving along here. Let me switch over to ExtractCAD real quick. Here you go. There we go. Okay, so here's ExtractCAD, and you can get a better view and close some of the buildings and the streets off. So here are the modules for Canal Street. I have these 3 built. Some of them have the track on there, some have the base already. I would have to build 1, 2, 3 more main street running tracks here. All these extra ones that are going to like wings, these extra 3, they're for industries so that you can actually see these big warehouses and stuff that will be occupied. This will be kind of neat here, this big warehouse here. You can be able to bring boxcars in and spot them in particular spots. There's an outside transfer warehouse here that goes in between these 2 buildings. This here was the initial warehouse that was there. I think this is a cold storage area or something. This track, you can see the door was closed off early, but I kind of like the idea of it going in. There is another spur here on the side. Not sure how they worked that, but there was a track that was inside, outside. These buildings here they're not going to be as big as you see here. They will be cut back to the edge, obviously, of all the black lines. They'll be cut back to, oops, let me turn that off. They'll be cut back to the benchwork here. So there will be modules, and then this whole section will be able to move outside of my basement and go to train shows and RPMs and connect to Fremo modules. I'll just make an adapter from the last section here and make a conversion to the Fremo standard, and then this could be connected to the Fremo layouts also. So here's an overall view of the layout. Let me turn on some of the people. There we go. You can see the freight cars. A lot of the freight cars are occupying areas. Again, this is a completely full layout with freight cars. It wouldn't be like that normally. I was just trying to get counts. But you can see it can handle probably a few different operators.
I got 7 on here, but a more reasonable thing would be probably 4, maybe 5 guys can come over and operate. But really excited about this.
Okay, that's it. There's the track plan. I hope everybody thought that was pretty cool looking. I'm excited about this. Thank you for hanging in. I know this was a very long video, but there's a lot of information I want to share with you guys. So the next step is tearing this layout out and moving on. Can't wait for the PBL to come alive. Keep model railroading.